welcome back. Happy Monday. Unfortunately, today is a yellow sort of day, thanks to one of the projector cords. So hopefully we'll be able to get classroom services to fix this by Wednesday, but I think we're just going to be feeling a little yellow today. So I want to start out with kind of picking up where we left off on Friday with regular expressions. So hopefully you won't feel too much like this comic today. You'll, kind of remember what our thought process was. What I would like us to do today is we spend a bunch of time figuring out exactly how to write regular expressions, but we didn't end up using them in PHP at all. We just wrote regular expressions. So today I want to start by writing those in PHP. So if we want to use regular expressions in PHP, there are three main types of functions that we use them in. So pregmatch just returns true if the string passed in matches the regular expression passed in, and false otherwise. Pregreplace replaces anything that matches a regular expression, and pregsplit splits on anything that matches a regular expression. So the one that we're going to be using most today is this pregmatch, because we started talking about regular expressions in relation to validating user input, right? And when we validate user input, well, we don't really need to replace anything or split anything. We just kind of need to check if things match. So we're going to start with pregmatch. So what I would like to do is I'm going to come over here to our turn-in, right? And in our turn-in, there was a spot where you were supposed to type your name. Now, in our turn-in submit page, let's validate that the users put their name. Because, well, if you haven't put your name, it's going to be hard to get credit for your homework, right? I mean, we all found this out in elementary school, I think. So let's validate that we've got a good name here. So if we want to validate the name, anytime you want to do any validation or anything with a regular expression, the first thing to do is to come back over to Rubular. And in Rubular, right, I have some passes and some fails here. This one is set up for the word Google, but we could set this up for our name, right? Like, let's think of some names that should pass. I mean, I think my name should probably pass. What else should pass? What? John, okay. Let's see, wait. John, should my badly capitalized, badly spelled John pass? That should probably pass too. I mean, it'd be nice if you could spell your own name, but close enough, right? And that one has like weird capitalization in there. What do you think is the shortest name we should accept? What? Li? Li? Yeah, I think probably like 2 letters is probably the shortest. Has anybody ever heard of a 1-letter name? Yeah, I mean, if you have 1 letter, it's pretty much your initial, right? We want your name. Okay, what about, is there like a longest name, a longest amount we should like that we should make sure we cap it out or something? Yeah, probably not. Alrighty, so can you guys think of some things that shouldn't pass? 1, 2, 3, 4, right. Like, you don't tend to get numbers and names, so we probably shouldn't pass with numbers. Maybe we shouldn't pass like other random symbols either. Let's see, combinations of like letters and numbers. Anything else? What? 1 letter. Sure, 1 letter. All right. So I think we've got some good cases to start with here. And so if we wanted to write a regular expression for this, maybe I should take out all these Googles. But there we go. If I wanted to write a regular expression for this, how should I start? What's one part of the regular expression I should write? Yes. square bracket A to Z, and then star on the outside. So we want to put case insensitive. So if we want it to use the I, we need to put it over here at the end. So that's going to match. This matches all single letters, right? How could we fix this so this would match? Not match some of these things down here. Somebody else, yeah. Curly braces to what? Two comma. Yeah, 2 comma. Right, so this is going to match things that are 2 or longer. We're still matching one of the things down here, though. How could we not do that? Yeah. Yeah, the anchors for the beginning and the end. Right, so there we go. So I highly, highly recommend for your next homework assignment that you try all of your regular expressions like this. It is way easier to debug this and get this working first than it is to do it once you get it in PHP code. So, okay, we've got a good regular expression here. Great. So now if I want to put this in our code, so I'm just going to copy this, and I have to remember to put my I at the end, right, because I have /I. All right, so if I want to check that the name that we're passed in matches this, well, I can say if, and I don't really want to do anything if they match. If they match, right, we're all good. But if they don't match, I should probably do something, right? Like say, you can't turn your homework in without your name on it or something. So let's say not preg match, and then the pattern is our regular expression. So it's this, and we need to put it with slashes, and then we need to put our I at the end, right? So let's see. I think I have an example of this. Yeah, I have an example of this in the slides here. So there we go. This one happens to be matching a state, right? But basically the same idea. All right. And then the thing that we want to match here, our subject, is going to be our name. So our name came over in our post array, right? So our post array, this is post at name. And then if they don't match, well, we could print, an error message. You must turn in your homework, or you must put your name on your homework. It's hard to spell this morning. Put your name on your homework. This may have some odd consequences, though, if we just do this. What's going to happen if I just do this? What might be a problem? Yeah. Yeah, it'll still submit. Like, it'll still run all of this code, but it's going to have a hard time moving our file to our name because, so long as the user submits some name, we can move it to whatever that name is. But if the user submits nothing, which also doesn't match our regular expression, right? If the user submits nothing, then it's going to be kind of hard for this to move it there. We're going to end up with weird files being saved weird places. So we probably don't want to do that. So if we just wanted to stop our code running, what would we do? Die. Right. We just kill it off. So we say die. All right. I could even say put my message here in my die, right? Because that can print something out instead of having that separate print. So, that would work. This is not usually what happens when you submit a form wrong, though, right? Like when you submit a form wrong, you usually don't click submit, and then it goes to a separate page that says, you did it wrong. What does it usually do? Yeah. You could disable the submit button. So it is true that we could disable the submit button until the user typed in a valid name. The thing about that, though, is we would be doing that in JavaScript. So if our user was really savvy with using the console, they could go in and alter that. So that wouldn't really protect us. It would be good user interface, but it wouldn't protect us. Yeah. Right. So that's usually what happens. Is that so usually there's some JavaScript on top that's does things like doesn't let you submit until you've put something in the box that's valid. But then also even if that gets disabled, there's some code that refreshes the page and like prints out an error message if you submit it wrong. So if we want to basically, we're submitting our form to this page, we're submitting the turn-in to turn and submit, and if we want turn and submit to say, okay, well, if you didn't pass the valid parameter, go back to the turn-in page and try again, there's a way to do this. We can do this, so we're already using die, but we can do this with our header function. Header, right, does everything. So our header function, if we want to redirect to another page, we can say location : and then give it a web address. So let's try that here. So I'm going to say header, and then location, and my location is going to be turnin.php. A couple things to note about this. You need to put your header before die. If you have die before header, then die stops your page from running, so your header won't run. I'm leaving this die in here though because when I call header redirects, but it doesn't redirect until the whole page is done loading and run. So if I put header here and I didn't put die, what would happen is that all of this code on my page would run, it would get to the bottom, and then it would redirect. But I don't want any of that file stuff to run if the user hasn't submitted correct name. So I'm going to die after. So this says redirect when my page is done, everything's printed out, and then die stops anything else from printing out, and so we'll redirect immediately. You guys okay with this? Okay, so let's, I thought I had FileZilla open. Well, let's open FileZilla and move this over and try it. So here we go. Connect to Webster. And let's see, we are in, I think these files are in my lecture 19. Yeah, so here we go. So we were just working on turn-in and then turn-in submit. So if I come back to our page in the browser, where's our page? Here we go. I'm going to refresh it, and let's just try submitting our form with nothing in it. So we're only checking for the name, right? We should probably do some checking for the other stuff, but we're only checking for the name at the moment. So I'm going to submit. What happened? Nothing happened. Let's try submitting again. Why isn't my submit button working? What's going on? You guys have any idea? Yeah. Right. It's going so fast you can't really see it. If you had a slower internet connection, you might see something going on more. But what's happening is that I submit this form, it goes to my turn and submit, and it redirects right away. So I'm not really seeing anything. Not so good, right? Not a great user interface. Because the user might just think your page is totally broken, and they don't know why their name doesn't work. Yeah. Should you have a set timeout? No, you don't want to delay the user. Like, you never want to delay the user on purpose. What is a good thing to do here is to pass a message back. So we get information between different pages, right, by sending parameters, by sending get and post parameters, right? So this is going to seem a little odd at first, I think, but what we can do is instead of just redirecting to turnin.php, we can redirect to turnin.php and pass it a parameter. like fail is equal to true, say. So if we do that, whoa, okay. Fail, if I set fail to true, then in my turnin.php, what I can do is I can say, like maybe I have, I want to print something out only, like print out an error message if I get that back. So I could say something like if, now that's going to be a get parameter, right? Because I added it onto the URL. So if is set of $_get at fail. I'm never going to set fail to be false, so I'm just going to check that it is set. I don't think I need to check that it's true also. So if I've passed this failure parameter, then what I want to do is just print out, I think I'll just print out a little message, maybe just a paragraph here that says, please input a valid name. You guys okay with this? This code is only going to run if we pass that fail parameter. So if I reload these two, reload that, and I'll reload that, and refresh. Okay, now just refreshing, right? There's no like warning, you submitted something invalid, but if I submit now it says please input a valid name. And you know, I should probably in my CSS make this red and I don't know, blinking or something so you really notice it. But that's how you get an error message to appear back on your page. You send it as a parameter. Any questions about this one? The redirecting stuff's a little weird and can be kind of annoying to debug, but it's used all over the place and is really useful. Okay, I want to show you a couple other little things that you can do in PHP. So, well, here's just an example of using header. But the next thing I want to talk about is include. So, you may have noticed on a lot of pages, like for instance, our class website. Let's see, I think I have it up. I guess I don't have it up anymore here. Our class website, if I go to like CS Washington.edu/154, we've got this big menu, right? And we played around with this code back when we were doing CSS, right? And that was a whole ton of code. Now, you've probably noticed if you go to different pages on the website, like you go to the lectures page, or you go to the homework page, right? This stuff at the top all stays here. But it would be pretty annoying to have that on every single page of the website, right? And menus like this, big menus like this, are really common. So that include function I just showed you on the slide, what this does is this will include another PHP file in your current PHP file. And basically by including, what this means is it will take all of the code in the PHP file you include or HTML file you include and just copy paste it into your PHP file that has that include statement in it, right where that include statement is, and then run that code as is. So our page right now doesn't have very much going on. A lot of the time this is used for like the very top and the very bottom, because a lot of times that's where you have a lot of repeated stuff. Right now we have this kind of title and such here. We could, it probably would be nice to put that on our turn and submit page too. So, to put the same thing here. So if I wanted to have kind of the same header on both pages, a common thing to do is to make another file, just copy paste that code in, and then I'll save this as like, let's see, top.html, and then in my turn in and turn in submit, instead of having all this code here, I can just say, let's see, PHP include top.html. Like that. And then I can do the same thing in, let's see, in my turn and submit here. I could put this down here like this. One thing to note here, I mean, this is kind of a separate conceptual thing from this thing, right? But we don't like to have these PHP blocks open close right next to each other. So you should always, always make sure that if you can put things in the same PHP block, you do. All right. So if we do that, then what's going to happen is that we will see the same thing on both. So let's see, move turn and over, move turn and submit, and then I'm going to refresh. If I can right click here so that I can see that new file. There it is, top.html, move that over. And this is not going to be very exciting to see because, right, if I refresh here, this looks the same. If I submit, let's submit with a valid name so we can, actually see some result, and maybe a valid file since it actually uses that too. And then if I submit my query, there we go, we have that same exact top. Not maybe too crucial with so little code, but anytime you're gonna have a big menu on the top or any large piece of repeated code, you're gonna wanna do that. All right, so that's include. You guys should be using that from now on. It's hugely beneficial. You get to stop copying and pasting things everywhere. Another thing that include can be used for is I made a just an HTML file like this, and I included it. You, instead of just making an HTML file, you can make a PHP file, and this is really useful if you have some functions that you would like to use on multiple pages. So for instance, something that you might want to use on multiple pages is maybe you want to check the parameters multiple times and make sure that they're set correctly on multiple of your pages, the same sort of parameters. Well, that would be a useful function to put here in a common PHP file that you include. And another thing, if you're just doing some computation, right, and it needs to be done on multiple pages, another useful thing to include in this. You shouldn't put things that are only used on one page in a common PHP file that you include, because that means that that function is basically going to be copied and pasted into every page that includes that file, and that's kind of a waste, right, if nothing else uses it. But anything used more than once, it's a really good place to put it. Any questions about any of this? Alrighty, well then I want to move on to our next big topic. Our next big topic is getting some state. So when you send something to the server, we are sending it over HTTP, right? So when anytime that you're contacting the server, it's sent over HTTP. That's why your web address, right, starts with HTTP or HTTPS. And basically that protocol is stateless. So it stores no data. So when the web server gets the request, it just knows, here's a request. It doesn't know, oh, you've requested 5 different pages in the last 5 minutes on this, on this server. But there are web pages that do seem to remember things. For instance, Amazon will always greet you with your name if you've ever logged in before. It'll try and say hello to you. It remembers who you are. So today, for the rest of class, we're going to talk about how to remember who people are. I mean, unfortunately, this won't help you with people's names, but it'll help your website. So we remember that sort of stuff with something called a cookie. And you guys have probably heard of cookies. Has anybody not heard of cookies? Yeah, that's about what I thought. Cookies are kind of in the news a lot. Basically, a cookie is just a piece of information remembered, like a name, or the fact that you're logged in, or what you put in your shopping cart. It's just a small piece of information. It can be used for all sorts of things. People used to like to turn cookies off. It tends not to be very practical at all to do that nowadays. You pretty much have to have cookies enabled to use the internet, because cookies do things like track the fact that you're logged in. And so if you don't allow cookies, you can't ever stay logged into anything, which makes it kind of hard to really do anything on the internet. Also, they do things like keep stuff in your shopping cart, so it's hard to buy anything if you can't set cookies. So you pretty much have to have them turned on. What happens with the cookie is you originally send a request for a web page to the server. So this is like you want to go to Amazon.com. So you send a request to the server that has Amazon.com for the page. The server sends you back the page and a cookie. So the cookie comes from the server. The cookie doesn't come from your computer. It comes from the server originally. So that gets sent back to your computer. And then your browser knows that anytime it sends another request to that same domain, so to Amazon.com, that it should send that cookie back with that request. So basically, we send another request, we send our cookie along. And so this cookie basically is some little bit of information that's going back and forth on the requests, which allows you to maintain some state. So for instance, let's say, when you first access Amazon, you log in, and then this cookie remembers your name. You sent your name to the server says, oh, let's put this in a cookie, so every time that I send a web page back, I'll know what this person's name is, so I can include it on the page. Cookies have kind of a bad reputation. How many of you have heard bad things about cookies in the past? Okay, a whole lot of you, right? So they've got a really bad reputation for things like causing viruses or spyware or stealing your information, spam. Some people think they're only used for advertising. It's true that they are used for advertising, but they're also used for a ton of other things. That is not their main use at all. Cookies can't create any sort of viruses or spyware or pop-ups or anything like that because they're just data. They're not a program. Setting a cookie is literally like setting a variable. Like if you had, dollar name is equal to John, say, that cannot cause pop-ups to happen. It's just some data, and that's basically what's stored in your cookie. It's just something like that. They can't read any information on your computer, because again, it's just a piece of data. They can be allowed to to track your viewing habits a little bit, but they can only do this on a certain site. So for instance, if I'm Amazon, the only cookies I can see are cookies set by Amazon. Now it may be that Amazon has a lot of different kind of sub-sites, like there's Amazon.com and there's like Amazon.audible or something, and there's Amazon. Amazon owns all sorts of stuff, right? So if I have a cookie set by Amazon, Amazon can view that cookie on all its connected web pages, right? So it's not just one HTML, one PHP file that sets the cookie that can view it. It's anything on that domain at all. But for instance, if Amazon sets you a cookie for you, Microsoft.com can't view that cookie. So there's one little exception to this, and this is tracking cookies. And so when you go to websites, a lot of times there's ads, right? I mean, it's the bane of everybody's existence on the internet. So there's all these ads. And it turns out most websites don't just like talk to companies and get them to pay that website to advertise. Instead, advertisements are mainly controlled by some big companies that basically people pay to advertise with the company, and then the company pays the owner of a website a little bit to have those ads on their website. And the way this works is that the website, like say MediaWiki, will load from the MediaWiki server. But the ad on the site will load from the ad company's server. And so if that ad company has an ad on another site, what can happen is that, they set a cookie over here, and then the ad company can see the cookie the ad company set over here, because the ad company is sending something to as part of both sites, and so it has access to that. Now, it can be kind of annoying to think that they're, getting that data about you. They can't really track much that way though, other than, because all they can really know is what websites you're accessing. You can also stop this if you would like. So I mentioned it's not really practical to turn off cookies because you can't do much on the internet without them. But what is practical is to turn off third-party cookies. So if you go to your settings in your web browser, there's some checkbox that will allow you to turn off all third-party cookies. And third-party cookies are these cookies that, you didn't go to whatever this ad company's website is that's serving up that. You went to CIA.gov, say, and then that loaded this extra content from that other website. And so what disabling third-party cookies says is any website I type in and I purposely try and go to, that can set cookies. But anything that loads, like any of these ads, that can't set cookies on me. Make sense? All right. So, cookies do get used for this. This is not what we're going to be using them for, though. You can, if you are curious about where your cookies are, this is where they're stored. You can go look at some of them. Usually they're not very interesting to look at. But if you really are curious, you can take a look. You can also look at some of them in your browser, in your settings if you would like. There are two types of cookies, which is partly why there's two locations for cookies. The session cookie and the persistent cookie. So a session cookie is a cookie that lasts so long as you're logged into your browser. And this is kind of the default type. It's very temporary. And so it tends to be a little bit safer because it's not actually stored anywhere, so nobody can really access it. This type of cookie, one place you might have seen this is when you log out of MyUW, right? There's some page that comes up that says, please make sure you close your browser, right? You guys seen that? Maybe nobody ever logs out. For years anyway, there was this page that said, please make sure you close your browser. The reason for that is that when you log out, that you can delete the cookie, like the website can delete the cookie, but just to make sure that the cookie is totally and completely gone, a lot of websites will suggest that you close your browser because that will completely obliterate anything that for some crazy reason hasn't been totally deleted in terms of cookies. So that's a session cookie. A persistent cookie is a long-term cookie. So this is one that's actually stored in one of these files here, because we want to keep it between times that the user is using the website. And the user might shut their browser, open it up again. This can keep track of long-term information, but it's probably a little less secure because it's actually stored on the user's computer, and you can actually open those files and look at stuff. This kind of cookie is used for things like, a lot of us have Facebook accounts, right? And if you're on your computer, you can log into your Facebook and stay logged in for, a month or something. That's the kind of cookie that's used to maintain that login. Persistent cookie. All right. To actually use this in PHP, there is a function called setCookie. And setCookie takes a name and a value. So think of this like variable name, variable value. That was the analogy I used before, right? It's like a variable. It's really, really like a variable. I wasn't kidding. You have basically here, you're saying like username equals Allison with far too many L's, right? There we go. That's basically what you're doing. I suppose it's PHP, so we should probably have a $sign. So when we put this in, when anybody accesses the page, that cookie will be set and sent back to the user. You have to set a cookie before you output anything. So no HTML, no prints, no echoes, nothing, no logging before this. It has to be the first thing. And you can set a lot of cookies. So you don't have to worry about stuffing a whole ton of data into one cookie. You can set, it's usually, the browser has some limit, but it's usually between like 20 and 50. So, I mean, if you think about your average program, you don't usually even use that many separate variables, right? And they can be pretty decently big, 3 to 4K. I think that with the cookies you're going to be setting in this class, they're going to be, well, usually short things like these. So you're not going to have to worry about that at all. And by default, when you call set cookie, it is going to expire when you close the browser. So it's going to be a session cookie. Once you set a cookie, if you want to retrieve information from that, it works like pretty much everything else in PHP where we've stored something. You have a $cookie array. Although make sure it's cookie, not cookies. For some reason, you think if you had multiple, it would be cookies, but it's just cookie. So your $cookie array, you can access it at whatever name you gave your data, and that will get you your data back. If you want to see if there is a cookie, you can use isSet, just like we've used it with our get and post and files arrays. So let's try this with our code. So if we look at our code here, well, actually, let's look at our web page. If we look at our page here, right, I have to put in, and here, I'll take this fail as true off. So we're at our initial page with no parameters. I have to type in my name here. In the real turn-in page, right, you log in first. You log in with your UW Net ID, and then you don't have to type in your name because we already know your name because you already typed it in when you logged in, right? So I would like us to do something like that here to try the set cookie. And we're not going to log in with the UW Net ID because that's really complicated. Instead, we're going to make our own little login. So I've got us started out with a little page. So I've got a file called login.php here. And basically what it's got on it is it's got an input for your, I guess I call it student ID here, as opposed to, name. But if you give us your student ID, we can look up your name, right? So we can find it. So, here's student ID, and then password. It's an input of type password. And I'm going to submit this to a login submit page. So in my login submit page, so you've just logged in, you've submitted to this page. What do you guys think we should do if a user, when the user tries to log in? What do you think? What? Sorry, I can't hear you. Greet them? We could greet them. We should probably make sure they're actually logging in with valid stuff first, though, right? We should probably, check. So we probably want to say something like, if the, and we're past parameters. Let's see. I think I used a post here, because, well, if I'm passing a username and password, which should be secret, I probably don't want to put it in my URL where people can see it. So if my, let's see, dollar underscore post at, let's see, ID, if my ID is, I want to check if that's set. Well, if that is set, and then I want to check if it's equal to like the right thing, right? So if that's set and this is equal to, let's see, let's say, I'm going to say my ID. I think the only thing I specified in my form is that it has to be, like it has a max length of 7. So like your UW net ID. So I'm just going to type, let's see, I'm going to type just my name here because that should work for, like, this should pass our name test, right? And this should pass our, and that will pass that test. So, you know, I want to check if that's set and it has that value, and if, and then I should probably check if my password set and has a particular value too. So, and if my, I think it's password is set and my password, let's say our password is like, let's see, CSE 154. Okay, let's see. I think I've got my right curly bracket or my parentheses. So if I've set both of those, password and name, and they're equal to those correct values, I mean, right, we normally wouldn't just see if they're equal to certain values. We normally say, you know, say like, here's a file of all the usernames and passwords. Do these match any line in there? Something like that. I just want to keep this simple for the moment. So if, you know, if this is true, we want to, basically we want to log them in, and otherwise we don't want to log them in. Are all of these tests really necessary? Is there anything extra here that we don't need? Yeah. Right, we actually don't need this is set. So I wanted you to see this because I think it's really easy to think, you know, okay, we always have to check if it's set first. But if it's not set, it's definitely not going to be equal to what we want it to be equal to, right? So we can actually just say this. All right, so if we want to log you in, we want to remember that you're logged in, right? So if we want to do that, we want to remember something. Like basically, I want to remember after this page that we're logged in, and I want to be able to look up that information and check it on other pages, right? So I can set a cookie, because that will allow me to remember things between pages. And I'm going to say, like, my name, I'm going to call it name, and I'm going to set my name to, you know, the username I was using up here. So I'll set that cookie. And then if I have correctly logged in, right, it would be nice to just take the user to where they want to go. And so right now, the only thing our login page is controlling is our turn-in. So let's just take them directly to the turn-in. So I can say header, location, and this is turnin.php. You guys okay so far? Okay, and if they don't log in correctly, let's just redirect them back to the page that they got here from. So that would be login.php. Login.php. And it would probably be good to have an error message there. We're running a little short on time though, so I'm going to skip that for right now because we already saw how to do that error message. So now I have, you know, set the cookie. Then I redirect to turn-in. Now on our turn-in page, we have this input for the name. since I'm going to get my name from my login, I'm going to remove this from the page. Now, if that's removed, and I look at my turn and submit, is my turn and submit going to work? It's not going to work because I'm no longer sending the name, right? So, what I can do here is instead of using post-it name, I have my name saved in my cookie array at name. So I can say cookie here instead of saying post. And that will allow me to access this from my cookie array. Here, I probably don't need to do this checking now because if you've logged in, well, we've accepted your login, you're definitely, logged in with a valid name. So I probably don't actually need to match the name now. I probably should see that you are logged in though. So how would I check if you are logged in? Yeah, I would see if the cookie's set. So I would say, something like, if not is set, $_cookie at name, then, then I probably want to do, basically some of this stuff. I probably don't want to say, you haven't put your name in. I'd probably want to, and maybe not go back to the turn-in page. I'd probably want to go back to the login page. So I'd probably want to say like header, and then location, login.php. Right, this is what the turn-in page does if you just try and go to it directly, right? It says, oh wait, no, you've got to go to the login page first. And then, of course, I should die so I don't try and create files or something with stuff that isn't there. We probably also would want to do this on our turn-in page, check if our name is set, and if not, redirect somebody, whoever's trying to access it, because if we don't, it doesn't make sense to allow somebody to try and turn something in if they haven't done that. So we could up here say if it's set, redirect. It's important here to have this check before the include, because the include is going to just print some stuff out, right? And so we can't print out anything for the cookie. Yeah. Could you create a separate file that checks the cookie and include that? Yeah, definitely. So what I'd probably do there is create a function in a separate file that I include in a lot of different pages, and then call that function here. So I'd include common.php and then call, check cookie. And that check cookie would be defined in my common.php. Any other questions? All right, well, I will post this code so you can take a look at it. We're just about out of time, so you'll get plenty of time to practice this and regular expressions in section and lab this week, and we'll continue doing some more with cookies on Wednesday so you can get some more practice. All right, have a great rest of your day. Yes.
When you said that you would have a common function,
Yes.
that you would then call, where do you actually write that function? So if
Okay.
you're calling it from multiple different uses?
So you write it in a separate PHP file, and then you include that PHP file in your page, and then you call the function. Because if you include that PHP file, it will basically copy paste that function and any other functions in that file into your file that you
So would
include.
you have include before you would call it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'd have all of your includes at the top, and it's kind of
So-
like importing in Java?
Yeah, it's kind of like importing basically you tend to, if you have include a PHP file, you tend to only include one, and you just put like all the common stuff in one file, because otherwise you end up with tons of files and it gets kind of confusing.
It's about the third-party cookie you mentioned
Yes.
before. So what is considered as a cookie, like third-party cookies?
So
It's like any two cookies from two different domains, or
So if you go to a website like, CS.Washington, if the cookie is coming from that server that you purposefully tried to go to, that is not a third-party cookie. But if you access that page and then that page says, "Hey, ad company, you can put some stuff on my page." Hey, other company, you can put some stuff on my page. Any other domain it contacts and allows to put stuff on the page, load stuff from, that is a third party.
So-
it's like if you didn't type it in, it's a third party.
But it's still like Google has this Google Ad Service. Is
Yes.
Google.com the same as Google AdService.com?
I don't think it is. I am not entirely sure because big companies like Google have so many servers and so many things going on. Like, I can tell you for sure that all of the stuff from CS.Washington, like if you look at Webster, the cookies set by Webster, you're also going to see cookies set by just cs.washington.edu and the 154 class webpage. You're going to see all those cookies because those are all connected. With a company as big as Google, I would imagine that they have some separate spaces for different things. I'm not quite sure about their ads. Sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
I wrote a logging system, and it's like mostly run by JavaScript and then connected to a PHP. If I want to set up